You might be wondering, damn, Frank, what is this song? It's so good. It's smooth, it's groovy. It's by an artist called Cannons. And the song is named Goodbye. So there you have it. Now you know. And don't call it a comeback. Because I can't. I said I couldn't do it. I was not going to coach T-ball. I wasn't going to do it. I said I'm just going to watch. I'm just going to let this thing play out, and I'm going to enjoy watching my little Aurora run around and play some T-ball. I'm not doing any babysitting. But I am now an assistant coach, and I'm going. It's just they had no coaches. They had no coaches. I remember those 16 years coaching 12U, and looking off into the distance at all the dads who were helping out very nobly to get the T-ball going, saying to myself, never. Even if I become a father, have a good time. Nope, there's nothing to do. So I will be. Aurora did her little. It was nice. We did a clinic today at 6:00, and mixing it up with the other kids, and she fields pretty well. You know, we work together. Haven't really done too much. I only go where her interests dictate. I don't want to push anything onto her, because then I know that they don't want it. They don't want it at that point. But she ran very well. She fielded very well. And we have to put together just like one practice before April 12th. The good thing is that it's mostly just going to be a Saturday morning game. I think it's going to be a Saturday morning game. And I think every once in a while, a weeknight that starts. What they told me was a weeknight game would be at 6:00. And it's no longer than 45 minutes. So at the very latest, I'll just have a couple 7:30 broadcasts on the calendar. Maybe even sooner than that. You know, I got home with about 20 minutes to spare. I just needed to sit down and stare at a wall for a couple of minutes, and that's what I'm doing. So, hello to everybody. Let me get into the chat room. What's going on, John Michael Karma? John Michael's one of the first to always show up when I schedule the show. What's going on, Robert Baker? Savor every moment, Frank. ST, every moment. Every day I have near throat closing moments with Aurora, with the things that she says and the things that she ponders. And especially when she ponders getting older, and she ponders growing up, and she has to she gives me daily disclaimers about how she's growing up and how I'm not a baby anymore. And I'm like, I know. And then she gets herself sad. And so I don't, I understand. I'm trying to keep it together. I'm always trying to keep it together. But it's nice. It's nice. It is. And the team's colors are purple. I love purple, and so does Aurora. So there's that. So welcome to the show. It's 7:33. I had a bunch of stuff I wanted to talk about, and I have Lauren Conlin coming on around 8:00 to talk about Utah. In the meantime, I had some other things we can discuss. I'm in the mood. I'm in the mood just to talk about life. I really am. But we don't have that much time until Lauren gets here, so I can't start any kind of substantive conversation with you about life, especially if I can't take any of your calls. So we'll just do this, and we have a great show tomorrow. We have a great show on Friday with Jay Gulanello. I have so many awesome topics and things that are building for call-in shows and everything else, but we have to have some kind of a reset. The Ark of the Covenant was found, by the way. I don't know if you heard about that. Ark of the Covenant. It was found by the CIA, actually. You know, every once in a while we get these little things, and, you know, the FBI vault puts something out there, and we get some confirmation for one thing or another. And it's interesting just to see pieces fall into place. You never think that you're going to get the full story, because it's ridiculous to think that the full story of anything would have actually been categorized and filed away in some kind of a government bunker that could be FOIA'd one day. We apply that way of thinking to a lot of different things. But on the other hand, like I said, I've said before, it does get to the point when those who know just how well they have the entire or a good part of the thinking population under the assumption that everything that they are fed is a lie, that there's got to be some truth that is just dangled out there as well. And then if everybody reflexively says it's bullshit, it's all bullshit. And you wouldn't be wrong in saying so. But they found that they said that the CIA remote viewed the Ark of the Covenant in 1988, 7 years after Harrison Ford already found it. And we're going to talk about that. I mean, hopefully we can talk about that a little bit later on tonight. But I have a fallback location of tomorrow night, because Lobster and Dave of the Nephilim Death Squad is coming on, and we'll be able to talk about all that kind of deep stuff. I went on their show weeks back, and we discussed remote viewing and all types of things like that. So I think that this would be well within that range. So I have fallback locations if we are not able to fit in all of our extras this evening. Also, there's more from Joe McGonigal from the Monroe Institute, who said that they actually remote viewed. There's been a lot of remote viewing of Mars, but they found bones on the surface of Mars back in the day, just bones lying around. And just like the Pilgrims found when they came to Massachusetts, just bones all over the place, unused corn, just got wiped out. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things happening on top of Signalgate, which maybe we can get around to in just a little bit. There is this, though. Take a listen to this. Just another example. There are two articles floating around on either Citizen Free Press, I forgot what it is, or probably Citizen Free Press, or Drudge. And here it is. Let me go to the window capture. Oh, no window has been captured. First from the Federalist, two AI articles, which I think are just funny, and they tell you a lot about what we're dealing with here. The Federalist, Amazon's AI calls conservative book about leftist indoctrination of kids biased and extreme. So this article is all about how Amazon's AI that they have rolled out hates conservatives and works to dissuade anybody from getting near so-called conservative literature, published works, or whatever the hell else. Then you have this story, which is just the opposite. I think this is from the Substack of what's his name again? Dr. Malone, Robert Malone. The climate scam is over, the headline. Peer-reviewed AI analysis completely debunks all the man-made claims. The review, a critical reassessment of the anthropogenic CO2 global warming hypothesis. Empirical evidence contradicts IPCC models and solar forcing assumptions. Now, I wouldn't be surprised how truthful this is. I think all those models are bullshit, especially when you stretch them out long term and all that, whatever you want to do. Now, I'll just say this from a big picture post-human AI apocalypse standpoint. I love talking about that, especially with people like Timothy Alberino, who will be back on the show some point this spring, and perhaps we can revisit this. But as far as the here and the now goes, when Jason Burmis was on, and I asked him the question, what does winning the AI race actually even look like? What are we talking about here? AI race is exactly what many of us see it as right here and now. Where it goes, to the transhumanist, post-Adamic future, that's something else. That's how, I don't know how many hundreds of years that is down the line. But as far as we are where we are right now, our main experience of what AI is all about is really going to boil down to this. It is just going to be the same old political standoff between ideologies, between ideological foes. And each foe is just using advanced chat tools that do miraculously fast work, but within the construct of its creator's worldview. Because, I mean, look at what we have over here. One AI hates conservatives and doesn't want you to read any of their books about liberal indoctrination with the porn in the schools. And the other one is debunking climate change, which should be debunked. But people would say it's not real and it's only because... So I would be a lot more excited. I would be a lot more excited about this if Grok or ChatGPT or anything else was like going to Ace Hardware and picking up buying a new hammer. You know, you say, well, it's just about a tool. Well, yeah. How do you really know where are we going to be able to litmus test how unbiased a tool is? How unbiased? That's the question. Because you can drive a nail with a hammer, or you can kill someone with a hammer, of course. But at least the hammer isn't programmed to lie to you about the way it's being used. That's the issue here. Say, well, it's a tool. Yeah, it is. Yes, it is. So is a hammer, but the hammer doesn't lie about its nature. And it's just nuts. We should definitely, there's a very interesting and maybe hamster wheel circular argument to be made about all that stuff, about what is truth. But I feel that comes up almost every night on the show in one form or another. All right, 741. What else do we have? I'm not even going to do an intro tonight. I just want to roll right into it because we still might be ending around 9 o'clock. Charlie Kirk. President Trump just signed a presidential memorandum ordering the immediate declassification of all FBI files relating to Crossfire Hurricane investigation, which kicked off the Russia hoax of 9 years ago. 9 years. This is a big deal. Our own FBI tried to sabotage a presidential candidate based on an absurd conspiracy theory, then sabotage that same candidate after he was elected. Well, at that point, that was just about making sure that candidate never found out what they did. Then coordinated a deep state-directed censorship campaign to throw him out of office. The only way he can hope to fix this now is with total transparency. And here he is signing a executive order. Take a listen to this.
Files relating to the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. Obviously,
wait.
One of the instances of the weaponization of law enforcement powers of prosecution against you and others. We believe that it's long past time for the American people to have a full and complete understanding of what exactly is in those files.
Which gives the media the right to go in and check it. You probably won't bother because you're not going to like what you see. But this was total weaponization. It's a disgrace. Should never happen in this country. But now you'll be able to see for yourselves, all declassified. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All declassified?
Yes, sir.
Everything?
The FBI file with there's a classified annex, but other than that,
anything that Robert Mueller's minions didn't burn or smash or anything else, that'd be interesting. Especially because this is being conducted by Kash Patel. These are one of those things, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, that I am curious to see how far they push the ball. Curious. It's like, as I said weeks ago when I heard that Dan Bongino was going to be given some deputy position at the FBI, deputy director. That is the biggest. That's the most amount of time I spent listening to his show. It was actually during that whole time, around 2019. I don't know. I stopped listening to a lot of shows after 2019, not for any other reason than I just didn't have time. But we'll see. We'll see. If there's anybody behind this, the people that you would want to be behind that in particular, I wonder what Adam Schiff is doing. He's got to be at least a little nervous. President Trump unleashes 25% tariffs on foreign-made auto parts. Imports. 25%. This will continue to spur growth. Trump confirmed that these new tariffs are in addition to existing tariffs and are expected to result in $100 billion in revenue. This is permanent. In addition to tariffs, Trump discussed his plan to allow Americans to deduct interest payments on cars that are made in America. Wow. Really? If the car is built in the U.S., there will be no tariffs. We are going to charge countries for doing business in our country and taking our jobs, taking our wealth, taking a lot of things that they've been doing for over years now. GM and Ford shares are tumbling further on the news. Well, this is going to be interesting. And what culminates on my birthday? Wednesday? A week from today? That's when all the other tariffs start. We'll see. It's going to be an interesting spring. Got to just leave that open. All right, you know what? To hell with it. We're going to play the intro anyway. Let's just go for it. We will be right back. Thank you guys and gals for being with me on this shortened night. But still, I don't know what I would do if I didn't get to say hello to you at least. Be right back. Maybe.
Have you any idea how successful censorship is on TV? Don't know the answer? Successful, isn't it?
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!
Oh man, I already started seeing the pieces of the new intro coming together. Very exciting. Very exciting. Everything. The facelift that began in 2024 continues. And boy, lots to report on, but so much I can't say anything about just yet. Still, thanks for showing up. The Quite Frankly newsletter photo submissions on the forum, please. We want to highlight you guys and gals and your families and your road trips and your big accomplishments and your art projects or anything else that you want to show off and talk about. Just get something in there. It's a wonderful way to contribute and to be highlighted in what is a really big point of pride that started in 2024 as well with the newsletter, the Quite Frankly Bulletin. It comes out on Monday, April 7th. That's the first Monday of the month, and you can be part of the fan features. So it's pinned to the top of the forum on quitefrankly.tv. Show us something, baby. Some great stuff coming in already. All right, all this gates. There's a gate here. There's a gate there. Of course, Russia gate. There's more and more. There's more and more reasons why we would have needed some sort of a controversy. You didn't quite know if there was something left to cause a stir about. Now, Mike Waltz, national security advisor for Donald Trump, a couple days ago, it came out that he had, I guess, mistakenly added an Atlantic journalist, if you want to call them that, to a signal group where, Pete Hegseth and a few other people were in there, and there was conversations about, operations in Yemen and all that. Then there was a Mike, what's his name? What the hell the guy's name? Jeffrey Goldberg. Here's a little bit on it from Politico. Donald Trump was upset when he found out that National Security Advisor Mike Waltz accidentally included a journalist in a group that discussed plans for military strikes, but it wasn't just because Waltz had potentially exposed national security secrets. Trump was mad and suspicious that Waltz had Atlantic editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg's number saved in his phone in the first place, according to 3 people familiar with the situation, who were granted anonymity to discuss private conversations. A 4th person said the president was also particularly perturbed by the embarrassing nature of the episode. Well, yeah, why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he be? President was pissed that Waltz could be so stupid, a person said. Mike Waltz invited Goldberg to the chat, according to The Atlantic. Now, as far as what was going on in the chat, there are screenshots you can read. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on over there. Most of the questions about the story is how Jeff Goldberg from Atlantic was added to the group. Was it Mike Waltz? Was it some kind of a hack job? Whatever the hell it was. And was it actually discussing, I mean, they're discussing a military operation, but was it about war planning and war gaming? And now there's a battle of, this is all going to be out of the news in a couple more days. It's already boring. Some say it was real. Others say that the contents of the chat were overblown and don't constitute actual war plans. Democrats are using it as a reason to demand resignations, of course. Republicans are largely waffling on this and trying to stay as neutral as possible, just waiting for it to blow over. But on a couple of personal points, I am curious about the Goldberg character, how he was planted into the group, if it was Mike Waltz or something else. And but again, it's the timing. It's the timing. What has otherwise been tightly zipped, perfectly executed, now you have this story that comes at a critical juncture where there's nothing but L after L after L for Democrats, their bureau buddies, fellow travelers, no matter what political party they say they're a part of. How did this just all happen? And then the statements from John Ratcliffe, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth about what was and was not in there. So yeah, I just, it's just one of those things where I can't stand this. I can't wait till it's out of the way. But my big thing here is you have 2 forces at play here, 2 big points. The first one is the nature of the media. Now, regardless of the technical truth of the matter, who let who in? Was there actually real actionable intelligence being talked about it? Was there any real intelligence shared about troop movements and flight paths and whatever else? All of that stuff, the technical truth of the matter, these people, liberals, progressives, uniparty, bureau people, fellow travelers, they would take anything to spin it into a scandal at this point in the game, anything. Just like they did with the World War I memorial lies that was all through the Atlantic, fittingly enough, and how they were even running stories about Trump rumored to have even used the phrase shithole countries in closed meetings. Okay, that was even, that's something right there. I don't know if it was ever actually even verified. Wouldn't care one way or another. But the fact that somebody was willing to either smuggle it out of a closed-door meeting or make it up entirely to then get everybody in broadcast media to dedicate weeks of coverage to it for no other reason than to sow discord in the world, to make it harder for the Trump administration to go out and actually conduct and attend to foreign relations. They're trying to anything. They will do anything to paralyze people that they don't like, administrations that they're not completely walking in lockstep with. There might be some bleed over there, like war in general. Donald Trump is not a pro-war candidate by and large, especially compared to everybody else who runs for office and God knows however many decades, generations. But I'm more disturbed, again, by the fact that we're still dropping bombs in Yemen. dropping bombs without a declaration of war. That seems to be the bipartisan agreement here. Are our ships being attacked by a foreign military? Then get Congress to declare a damn war. I'm telling you, militarily, we are still the children burning anthills with magnifying glasses in the desert. Really ridiculous. So it'll blow over, and we'll get back to business as usual, and whatever. But it would also be great to see all this stuff getting zipped up out there and bringing everybody home and our resources home too. That's what I'd love to see. That might be a little bit too much to ask, though. Okay. I'm going to put this on the record now because I'm sure Lauren Conlin is going to show up any minute. This is from Revolver, and this has everything to do with her and the updates she's bringing about the darkening situation out there in Utah. Revolver, folks, there is something dark and corrupt unfolding in Utah right now. This is from March 12th. I've been saving it since then because Lauren Conlin was on vacation and now she's back. Brace yourself for a truly disturbing story unfolding in Utah. It's so off the charts, you might need to read it twice. The level of corruption exposed here is nothing short of unbelievable, revealing something dark, sinister, and twisted operating at the highest levels of the state. In short, Utah fire chief has been arrested for alleged child exploitation. Here is from QAGG News. The fire chief of the Trentonton Fire Department has been arrested on multiple charges after an investigation showed he allegedly shared videos and photos containing exploitation. Ned Brady Hansen, 54 years old, was taken into custody Monday by Brigham City Police, who had served a search warrant at the chief's home. There it is from QAGG News, Brigham City, Utah. That was in January. As disturbing as that is, the story gets even worse. The fire chief was released on bail by a judge who was later arrested himself. Okay? Released on bail. Say, what? How was the bail even surmountable? That should have been insurmountable bail. But he's released by a judge who was later arrested himself. Investigators uncovered explicit child-related conversations between the two men. And reports suggest that they may have also been in a sexual relationship. The judge and the fireman. That's one hell of a premise. But this may run even deeper. It's becoming clear that something sinister is unfolding in Utah at both the local and state levels. It seems that there may be some very serious, devious rhinos running the state. Take a look. In Utah, this is from Casey, Gail Casey. In Utah, we have state senators who are trying to reduce the duration of sex offender committing crimes against children or human trafficking, or human trafficking is on sex offender registry. We have judges who have been arrested for sex crimes against children. The same senator is the chairman of the Judicial Confirmation Committee. Wake up to the evil around us. We need to change in Utah. Utah Judge Kevin Robert Christensen, 64, was arrested Thursday following an investigation by the FBI's Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force. Christensen is currently listed as a judge with the Box Elder County Justice Court. The shocking revelations between the fire chief and the judge have raised some serious questions about corruption and abuse of power at the highest levels. Ned Brady Hansen, this is from Libs of TikTok, the Trentonton, Utah fire chief, was arrested for the alleged sexual exploitation of children. He was released by the custody. I mean, it's just the story over and over again. Over and over again. But there's even more to that. There's even more to the story, and for that, I want to bring in Lauren Conlin, because it's been a while since she's been on the show, and it's just we got to catch up. All of her stuff is in the description of the episode. You know her from this show or elsewhere. In fact, last time she was on this show, I visited my mother shortly afterwards, and my mother was actually watching Lauren on television. She's, oh, that girl's on television. Lauren, what was that again? Welcome to the show again.
Hi. Hi, thanks for having me, Frank. It was the CW Crime Nation show
That was
about the Kansas mom's case.
Yes, that was it. That's exactly what it was. Well, listen, I hope you had a great time with your family on vacation. You know how hard of a worker you are. You must have been champing at the bit to get back into the swing of things, even though it's awesome to be away with the family. But here we are, and man, there's been a pile of Utah news just waiting for you. So
yes,
go ahead.
Yes.
Tell us what you have learned. Obviously, we just did a little bit of a roundup with this Revolver article.
Yes, I actually wanted to add something to that based on the tweet that you read. It's really interesting. There is a senator in Utah who is proposing a bill that would remove certain sex offenders off of the registry after 10 years. They want some kind of time period because apparently 10 years is enough. You're cured after 10 years. I mean, if that's not one of the most wild things I've ever heard, it's just so Utah.
Well, wait a second. That's the other thing that we were discussing last time you were on, that there were I think maybe one or two bills that were being proposed and that were moving their way through the legislative process in the state of Utah that had very distinct and graphic and specific language in banning certain kind of ritualistic abuse of children in the state. Am I correct in remembering that was actually defeated?
It was killed in the Senate. The House bill that would criminalize ritualistic abuse was killed. And there's no publicity around it. I had emailed the rep that was proposing this bill, Ken Ivory out of Utah, and he really had nothing more to say about it. However, there's another bill, and it's House Bill 66, which, I mean, make this make sense. This is basically set to pass. It just needs the governor's signature. But this bill would define how law enforcement trains when they are, I guess, investigating cases that involve ritualistic abuse. And ritualistic abuse, they are defining this as abuse against a child or adult that involves more than one person. And you kind of went through this last time, how just disgusting these details are about ritualistic abuse and what it involves. But yeah, I mean, Utah is really just trying to make this not real. They're trying to make ritualistic abuse some kind of fantasy fairy tale. And in my opinion, that's just not the case based on the hundreds of people that have come forward to the Utah County Sheriff's Office, the people that actually, sat through these legislative meetings and shared their stories. It's heartbreaking, really. And this actually ties into the David Lee Hamblin case, the American Fort case against him being recently dismissed in February. And then a judge just ruled that it's going to be dismissed without prejudice, or with prejudice. I'm sorry.
So that means with prejudice. That means it's done.
It's done forever. And the wild and most frustrating thing about this, as to why it was dismissed, it's evidentiary issues, and they are accusing law enforcement of hiding evidence. And what happened was the survivor, or the accuser, we'll just call her ES. She came forward to the Utah County Sheriff's Office, and she was interviewed, I believe, maybe September 28th, 2022. I could be off on that date. And she discusses this alleged abuse by David Lee Hamblin and other people in the church, or I guess the Church of Satan. And she's describing these men in cloaks. And I'm going to be really graphic and gross, so just trigger warning. She describes them feeding her spoonfuls of semen. Okay, so this interview was never turned over to the defense or to prosecutors, allegedly. And the interview the next day, on the 29th, is where she described the alleged, just plain old, regular abuse by David Lee Hamblin, allegedly, the plain old, gross pedophilia stuff. So basically, the defense never got this interview, and they were like, well, why did you withhold this? We've been asking for every single interview for the past 2 years. They apparently saw this interview on some kind of hard drive, and they still never got it. But in my opinion, it was purposely hidden because people in Utah don't believe in this ritualistic abuse. So I feel like law enforcement, maybe the prosecutors were like, and again, this is just my opinion, they were like, let's not turn this over because if we do, they're going to say it's not real. It doesn't count. So, I mean, again, I don't know the truth there, but it's very suspicious.
Yeah, we've been sitting around now for weeks since the confirmation of most of the big players in the Trump DOJ, and everybody's waiting on word from Epstein this, Epstein that, and yeah, it is a gigantic story because it's one of the greater gaping holes that allow you to go into the inner earth that is a world of ritual abuse, blackmail, power, power trading, all that stuff. And still it's largely having to do with a guy at the center of it who's been dead since 2019. And now we're just trying to find people who he was associated with. What you have been covering, what the Zells have been covering, what has been going on in real time in Utah, it's like happening right now. And it no doubt is a national thing. We were talking last time you were on, we spent time tracing routes out of the country into and through Ukraine again. I mean, this story has tentacles that go everywhere, from just run-of-the-mill corruption and deviancy to something that is far more sinister, spiritual, international. God knows where it is. It's going in and out of war zones, and it's happening right now. So it's incredible that I wish that there's a way to get more people to pay attention. And you know what? To the credit of the Utah State Legislature, the bill on ritual abuse was killed, but at least somebody put it together, and at least it got very, very close to being passed into law. And they did not mince words about what the hell they are trying to take on and what they're trying to defend. So it's somebody knows what's going on out there. I can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but man, this has been a crazy couple of months for Utah.
Yeah, agreed. And just going back to the case that you were talking about before I jumped on, the judge and the fire chief, I mean, you literally have corruption staring you in the face. I mean, these guys were allegedly in some kind of sexual relationship. They were exchanging messages about minors. I mean, and Kevin Christensen, the judge, was actually talking to minors. His charges are different than Ned Brady Hansen's, but the fact that Ned Brady Hansen was in his courtroom and he's like, nope, you can just be released on bail, didn't disclose any type of relationship, didn't recuse himself. Again, that's corruption. And I'm not even going to say allegedly because it's right there for you. And just going a little bit deeper into that case, it's so disturbing. And I'm wondering who else was on this chat with them, right? You've got a fire chief and a judge. You want me to believe there was no one else in power that was doing this behind closed doors? Get out of here. I mean, come on. Also, Kevin Christensen, how many of his cases should be reopened at this point? I mean, who was he letting off with a slap on the wrist?
A great point.
Yeah. And so when I have time, I don't know when that's going to be, but I really do want to go through his docket and see who he was dealing with in his courtroom. Because if you read some of these, and I can read you a piece of some of the affidavits here, but I mean, Christensen was actually talking to, I believe it was a 12-year-old girl, and he was saying things, asking her what gets her excited. He was sending her pictures of him. He was asking for pictures of her. He said it's fun to talk naughty. I mean, it's so disgusting. And then Ned Brady Hansen, he was more trading pictures with people, and it's called something. It's called like they might have said this on one of the, I don't know, somebody might know what it's called. It's weird pedophile slang. I guess maybe it's good. I don't know what it's called. But yeah, and he actually said, I would actually go through with this with somebody, with a child, but I'm scared to get caught. Well, I mean, you're an idiot. You're disgusting. And yeah, you got caught.
Obviously, if you're going through a docket of a judge like that, you're obviously going to be zeroing in on any case that has, assault, sexual nature to it, I'd have to imagine it'd be that. But not only that, it is it's nothing. There's nothing really that holds these people together other than their associations. It's not like they're bound by their perversions. They would easily flush another person down the toilet if they're not part of the same network as them. So it's not like this guy wouldn't put the screws to somebody else. He doesn't find anything noble about what he wants to do to vulnerable members of society. He knows he's a monster. So that would be very interesting to see if there is any past evidence of this preferential treatment that he's giving to members of his network in similar situations, if they're getting caught at all. Because I do know, like I was saying with the legislature in Utah, you got to give them credit, somebody out there, for knowing what is a very big problem and how to identify it with very specific terms. But at the same time, like when I was talking to Frank and Jim, when this was all starting to come to the public, there's a lot of people who worked around David Hamlin and what's the other guy's name? Levitt?
Oh, David Levitt, yes,
David Levitt,
the former DA.
Yeah, there are people who worked around. They were in contact with people in these guys' offices who obviously did not like them and suspected the worst of them. So again, baby with the bathwater. I wonder what known associates of the judge and the fireman are willing to say at this point, now that they have been detained, even though, again, the judge and the fireman, they're not the only ones. They felt the same kind of protection and insulation as other members in their clique have. So the larger network is still out there working.
Yeah, and let me point out here, Frank, that it wasn't Utah. It wasn't the Utah Sheriff's Office. It wasn't any type of law enforcement in Utah that busted these guys. It was the FBI's Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force. They got a tip from somebody. I think it was the Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They received the tip. They told the FBI that somebody with this IP address was sharing child sex abuse material involving a girl between the ages of 10 and 12. So they tracked the email address with the account that was connected, and they tracked it back to Hansen, the fire chief. So a warrant was served to Google and to Comcast, and then it later turned up his phone number and his IP address. And then his date of birth coincided with the last digits of his account or his account name or something like that. So it all matched up. They were able to get a warrant. They went in. He admitted to everything. They got all of his digital footprint to his electronics. And that's when they discovered the connection between Hansen and Christensen. So again, it's like Utah, the state of Utah, does seem to be turning a blind eye to this because it was the FBI. And I guess you're right. It's great that this bill did make it far enough and it was acknowledged and addressed, but I have a hard time believing that this rep fought hard enough. I'm not saying Ken Ivory's a bad guy. I'm really not. I just, from what I've seen, I feel like he could have pushed harder. I feel like others could have pushed harder and they didn't. So sometimes I wonder, I don't want to be too skeptical, but are they doing this just for show to make some of these survivors feel like they're heard and they're seen? And then they're like, okay, we did our job to a degree. Let's just stop.
It's a good point. It's a very good point. And I guess to follow that up, I would say, is there any record of debate on this? So, for example, I don't know how the Utah state legislature is set up, if it's bicameral or whatever the hell is going on there. But is there, when it was voted down, was there any portion, assigned time of debate for the bill that people were actually able to articulate reasons why they're opposing it? I would love to know what anybody would have offered up as a reason for opposing this.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, you can even see this in a couple different news articles. There was a few, I think it was a few Democratic senators who said, I just need more proof. I don't necessarily buy into this, but we don't know anything about why it was killed in Senate, except for the fact that it was killed. There's literally nothing out there on it. You literally have to call Ken Ivory's office or email the office. And it's just, It's so sad. I really, between the Hamlin case and this, and there are just groups that come out and support each other that are survivors of ritualistic abuse and things that have happened behind closed doors at LDS, and it just feels like they're not being heard, and it really breaks my heart here because I just can't imagine. And what they're also using to silence these people is the whole repressed memory syndrome. These memories that some of these survivors are having have been repressed, but the other side is calling them false memories. They're saying this is a false memory thing. It's not real. Somebody coerced this out of you. And, it's tough. I interviewed a psychologist who has experience in this, and it's really frustrating because he said that the data shows that both things are true: repressed memory syndrome and false memory syndrome. So it's a case by case situation, which makes me wonder, are we ever going to get the truth here of what happened to some of these people? And I don't just mean the truth, but are we ever going to get this to a point that there is a trial for David Lee Hamblin, or other people are charged in connection with satanic ritual abuse that were named in that very detailed and large 150-page victim impact statement by the Hamblin daughters in 2012? So it's really heartbreaking, and it just bothers me so much.
Yeah, well, when you have these cases of the judge and the fireman, when you talk about supposedly stand-up members of society that are doing this stuff and they're right out in the open, I learned that long time ago, that when you're home and you see a mouse in your living room running along the baseboards, when you see one, that means there's already many more. Usually, because it takes a long time for them to come out in the open and just be nabbed up. And I just feel like there's rats in the walls all over the place. And if that's the case, if those are the people, or at least a sample of people who are presiding over court cases in places like Utah, then you have to imagine how far does the network go, and how far people who aren't even involved but just feel the pressure to stay out of the way. Because there's also rash. Do you cover any of the rash of strange deaths that are going on? I mean, there was even like a very young judge. What the hell was she, like 43 years old or something?
Oh my gosh. Wait, that is insane. Hold on. I want to talk to you about that because they said she died. You're talking about the former, I think it was Virginia. She was a DA in Virginia, or an AG or something like that. But she died of natural causes at 43. She was found in her home deceased, but she was working on, or she had previously worked on, some very high profile cases involving Russia, Israel, and Iran. And they're sitting there telling us she died of natural causes when she didn't have, I mean, as far as I saw, she didn't have any pre-existing conditions. So I'm like, okay, sure, Jan, really? Someone needs to look into that. I mean, that is very wild.
And I know, like, I bring that up. It's not because I said it had anything to do with what was going on in Utah, but there's just, there's still just, I have to imagine that people who work in proximity to jurisdictions that you have to know, everybody knows what's going on out there. You know who is in charge in a superficial sense, and then you also know who the moneyed interests in any town, any village, any county really are. And you know who you really got to play nice with for one reason or another. And the consequences for not playing nice obviously can shift from time to time when more and more is at stake. So I just never know. There's so many ways to keep people in line, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And, I don't want to get too off topic, but just reading through what I read through with the JFK files, and everyone's like, oh, it's so cut and dry. It's just, there's nothing new. And I'm like, what do you mean? Yes, there is. I feel like we actually got answers here that what we thought about the CIA was true all along. They knew way more about Lee Harvey Oswald than they wanted us to believe. They did have connections to Russia. So, I feel like all of this stuff is, it's tough, and the government wants it all to be swept under the rug. And I think, I'm grateful for the Trump administration and trying to, I don't want to be cliche, but just outing the deep state. There's not going to be a deep state anymore at this point. But I know I don't have much time, so I did want to just add that David Lee Hamblin, he he is still being charged in another case in San Pete County, and he does have another hearing for that case on April 5th. I am hoping and praying that nothing is tainted in this case. This case doesn't have anything to do with ritualistic abuse. So I feel like hopefully we're good. But God, with Utah County, you never know.
Okay, so then real quick, that is sort of tied in because we're just talking about micro and macro here. Where are we with Sean Puffy Combs, P. Diddy?
Oh yeah, I mean his trial is set for May. I think it was his last hearing. He pled not guilty to a new count of forced labor, where he was accused of making his employees work on no sleep and no food. And when he got to court, it was pretty shocking to a lot of onlookers because he is so thin and he was all white. His beard, his hair. I mean, it's just pretty crazy to watch his fall from grace here. And, the civil suits against him have been pretty interesting. The whole Tony Busby thing, he's not allowed to practice law in New York anymore. And I feel like Tony Busby is a slime ball. And he I'm not trying to do Diddy any favors. I don't like the guy. He's a scumbag. But a lot of these civil suits were questionable. You got the Jay-Z one that was dropped. The girl admitted to lying. And you can pretty much say whatever you want in a civil suit, right? I mean, you're not going to get tapped for defamation until it's proven. But I do feel like when it comes to the federal case, I think it's pretty solid here. And I'm thinking that he's not going to see the light of day ever again. But yeah, I feel like the civil stuff has kind of, I don't know, it's kind of made him look better in a way just because of Tony Busby and his nonsense.
Okay. Well, we're going to those will be very interesting courtroom photos and paintings that come out, the sketches. And when does that all begin?
So I believe it's May 5th. I might be wrong on that date. I know that it's May, so don't quote me. But yeah, I think May 5th it starts.
Interesting.
Jury selection.
Do you think, the way that we have been able to digest all this stuff, we started thinking to ourselves, wow, this is just essentially hip hop Jeffrey Epstein. And we're looking at it through that lens. Many of us, especially people who watch shows like this, it's pattern recognition for a lot of us at this point. We can see just what this stuff can be. And then of course, somebody just outlives their usefulness or they become too much of a liability. They're cut off from all normal support networks. And then you're on your own, Harvey Weinstein, whatever the hell else. There are other big questions that make us all curious. But as far as the actual trial goes, do you think it's going to come anywhere near exposing a conspiracy of that size? I think that things like this, still, you're going to have big fish that are flushed from time to time, and they have to pay the piper and do whatever. But we've never seen anything that starts sketching out much larger conspiracies in the process of a trial like this. I think the blast radius is going to stay pretty tightly controlled over this one guy.
Yeah. And, I've been thinking about this. I've seen people put comments out like, show us the Diddy list. And I'm kind of like, what do you mean show us the Diddy list? You want names of people that stayed at his parties after 2 a.m.? I mean, I don't know what people are looking for here. I think this is a lot. I get it. There's are parallels to Jeffrey Epstein because he has been accused of trafficking people in the music industry, both men and women. But I don't think there's this list of people that Diddy is going to expose to get him a lighter sentence or get him some kind of plea deal, if that's what you mean. I mean, I think that we've seen the people named in some of these lawsuits. We've seen Kanye, of course. We saw Jay-Z. We saw Cuba Gooding Jr. But I think at this point, I think we would maybe have seen more names if they were going to come out. I think early on, one of the attorneys, Ariel Mitchell Kidd, had said, oh, I've got this tape of 2 celebrities bigger than Diddy that are doing something to a minor. I don't know what happened to that. It's weird, I'm not really sure what exactly to think, but I don't think it's going to be anything like Epstein, right? I don't think it's going to get to that level.
Right. Yeah. Well, people are still waiting for the Epstein thing to get to that level. Don't
even get me started. I am so mad. And I called this from the start. I said, Frank, and sorry to interrupt you. I said, we are never going to see We're never going to see it. I'm sorry. Pam Bondi lied. She literally lied on Jesse Waters when she said, oh, it's pretty sick. I'm like, well, what's pretty sick? You had 100 pages on your desk. You made a comment about this being sick, but you never actually looked at it. And also, if we're talking about the most prolific pedophile literally in history, all you're going to say is it's pretty sick. I knew that was a lie right there, just based on her statement. And then the fact that she's, blaming the Southern District, it's just, or the New York field office of the FBI. I'm kind of like, yeah, that makes sense, Pam. Pass the buck along. Totally pass it along. And I mean, what they put out was so offensive to me, where I'm like, you put out how many pages of redacted victim names just to, what are you showing us how many victims there are? We know how many survivors and victims there are. Don't mock us. Don't make us look stupid. Also, I fully understand Bondi has better shit to do, Frank. I get that. But she's the one that said, oh, I'm getting you the Epstein files. I'm getting these for you. So yeah, so we're waiting. But I'm not going to push her when I believe there's more important things here. She started it, okay? Not to be a child, but
No, I just
don't think we're ever really going to see the truth.
I get it. And that was the biggest thing that I brought up to the show as a point of contention when that whole phase 1 fiasco went down. Obviously you didn't read it. You said that it's pretty sick stuff. And then when we all saw what was so sick and what was sitting on your desk, it was stuff that we all read 4 years ago. It's like, okay, well, we read it. The Attorney General didn't, because obviously this is new to her. And and like I said, I'm totally fine if phase 1 was going to war with SDNY to be able to get more everything that was kept in New York to then release that eventually one day. So it was a big thing, and yeah, we'll see how far along it goes.
And when she's putting out flight logs and contacts from his contact, I'm just like, that's not a sign of guilt. I mean, RFK Jr. told us that his wife, Mary, who died by suicide, was best friends with Ghislaine. He told us this a long time ago, and he said, Mary and I and my children, we've flown on his jet many times. I mean, people have said this, so I'm not going to take a flight log and say every single person on that list is guilty. Alan Dershowitz, people can think what they want about him, but it's been proven that he didn't do anything. He literally wasn't where Gouffre said he was for these alleged assaults to occur. He has proven to us this didn't happen. Was he on Jeffrey Epstein's plane a lot? Yes, he was his attorney. So I'm just like, I'm not buying this. I'm not going to make something or nothing, you know what I mean? Something out of nothing. It's annoying. And I'm sorry, I really could go on forever about this. You can ask anyone. I just get so angry. I was so invested and just going through these files and figuring it out, but I knew it was too good to be true.
Well, I don't know all the individual details about Alan Dershowitz or anything else, but I understand it. At this point, if the dam is going to break, there's just got to be something a little bit more substantive and a little bit more. You can't dismiss it. It has to be undeniable and in your face. And that's what I think everybody's waiting for. Some kind of a shock to the system. But real quick, before we take off, what is coming up on the docket for the Karen Read retrial?
Oh my gosh. This is getting so insane, Frank. Today, it was announced that a juror from the first trial, who just happens to be a lawyer, just joined Karen's lawyer, David Yannetti, his law firm, and is now going to be on her team as a defense attorney. So literally, you have a former juror joining the team. It's crazy. And I recently interviewed the director of the ID series, the ID series on, the Karen Read series on ID. It's 5 parts, and they filmed it during the first trial. And I personally don't think it's great for Karen Read. And what's crazy is that the Commonwealth has filed a motion to get all of the transcripts from this docuseries and every other interview that she's done. And I just don't think that it's going to be very good for her at this point, just her own words. So this case is like, again, it's something out of a movie. You just cannot make any of this up. And just a few weeks ago, Alan Jackson almost had to come to court with his own attorney. And for those that don't know, Alan Jackson is Karen Reed's, one of her lead defense attorneys, famous for prosecuting Phil Spector, defending Kevin Spacey. They had accused him of not disclosing the full relationship with one of their expert witnesses, Arca. So it was dramatic, it was wild, and it's just another layer of craziness to this case.
Well, okay, we're gonna have to keep up with that one. There's a lot going on in the world, and when I bring on guests like you, I realize just how much more we're all missing. So, thanks for the time tonight, Lauren. And where can people find you? What's coming up next?
Yes, you can find me on YouTube at Pop Crime TV. I've got all sorts of content. Later this week, I'll be doing an episode about Karen Reed and the firing of Trooper Proctor, the lead investigator in her case, which happened last week. Oh my God. How are you even going to have a trial without the lead investigator here? It's crazy. So I've got some celebrity interviews coming up as well. And you can find me on Instagram at Lauren Emily Conlin, Twitter at Conlin_Lauren. TikTok, Lauren Conlin 4, and I'll stop. But anyway, thank you so much for having me.
It's all there, and I have your link tree in the description of the episode. So when people click through to that, everything will be there. So all the best to you, Lauren, and thank you so much for coming and getting us all up to date.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. Bye, guys.
All right, take care. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. So a little bit on that front. Utah's insane. And I know there's probably just as bad places out there, but perhaps it's all kept under wraps. Utah is bubbling over with crazy. And that, again, it's happening all in real time. This has been all happening in the most dramatic of fashion and disgusting ways since 2023, when we started paying attention with all the press conferences that started coming out with Levitt and Hamlin and all that. So let's take a really quick break. When we come back, it's you and me for the last 29 minutes. Just want to take some calls and talk about whatever's on your mind, comments, you name it. Super chats, quite frankly, superchat.com, and also the Rumble rants. Remember, I'm compiling all of your names from the super chats and the Rumble rants, and I'm automatically going into the raffle for next week's drawing for, I'm going to send you a Polaroid and also Jane Barlow's book, signed and inscribed. Good stuff. All right, so I'll be back in a flash.
Welcome to Intermission. Intermission.
Okay, everybody, let's see. Taking it light tonight. Jay Britz says, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. Yes. Oh, I know the feeling. I know the feeling. T-ball. That was never the plan. T-ball was never the plan. Great show as usual. Frank says, Grandma grateful on Rumble, and now she's in the running for that book. Thank you, Grandma. Is this the real life? Tucker posted an extraordinary obituary for his dad on X. Wording, interesting. what I assume related to CIA. Thank you for all that you do. God bless always, Frank. Is this the real life? Thank you. Let's see. Frank, it is Tremonton. Without the extra E. Oh, Tremonton? Tremonton. In Utah? Alrighty. Thank you, Ghost Smith 801. You know, I had seen the Tucker Carlson thing. I had seen the obituary. Tucker Carlson, obituary for my father. It was nice. It's not that long. Obituary for my father. Richard Warner Carlson died at 84 on March 24th, 2025 at home in Boca Grande, Florida, after 6 weeks of illness. He refused all painkillers to the end and left this world with dignity and clarity, holding the hands of his children with his dogs at his feet. He was born on February 10th, 1941 at Massachusetts General Hospital to a 15-year-old Swedish-speaking girl and placed in the home for little wanderers in Boston, where he developed rickets from malnutrition. Yeah. Well, there's a lot here. There's Reagan references, and always get the feeling that he did a little bit more, but it's all there. It's a very nice thing. I read it before, and whenever somebody has to do that for a parent, it's the best outcome you can think of. A child eulogizing a parent, it's sad, but I mean, the other way around is unnatural, horrible. So either way, I read it. I thought it was very, very well done. And you can read it for yourself. It's like about 5 or 6 paragraphs, and I just don't want to dominate too much more time with it. Let's see here. 914-200-0269. Over on quitefrankly.tv. Let's see what is happening over there, shall we? Into the chat room. Delona, thank you so much, my friend. Paulie9363, C. Blanch, and Zoso Dude says, when is King 40 going to be sent to D.C. as the Quite Frankly correspondent? Oh, I would love it. That would be fantastic. I'd love it. It would take a lot of... I think you want to talk about controversy. That would be just wonderful. Just wonderful. Okay. Oh, hold on. I didn't turn on the phone yet. There you go. Now the phone is on. 914-200-0269. All over the place tonight. In the meantime, take a listen to this. And tomorrow we will be doing a little bit more of this. I promise you. Secret CIA files that you can now read. The secret CIA files claim that the Ark of the Covenant was found. The location of a chest believed to contain the Ten Commandments has long been the mystery. But CIA documents claim the Ark of the Covenant has been found. According to the Bible, the Ark of the Covenant was built by the Israelites shortly after they fled Egypt around the 13th century BC. Moses then placed the Ten Commandments inside. The CIA conducted experiments in the 1980s with individuals who claimed they could perceive information about distant objects, events, or people. Other people. Oh, there's so much there. Hey, Frank Zell, what do you think about the CIA remote viewing the Ark of the Covenant?
I don't think too much about it.
No, why not?
That's not really my cup of tea. I leave that to Indiana Jones.
Listen, I know we all had to wait a week to talk about the Utah stuff, because as soon as the Revolver article came out and the fireman and the judge, oh man, I know it does not shock you or Jim, but anything, obviously you have thoughts in your mind. Go right ahead.
Oh, no, I was calling more about the Epstein stuff. Lauren Conlin. I mean, she's got Utah County covered, man. So like me and my brother, we kind of dropped that a while back. She picked up the ball. She's running with it. She does a fantastic job with it. So any questions going forward for Utah County, just save it for her. But mine was just about the Epstein files.
It continues. It continues. There is I don't know what to make of the, it's coming from InfoWars, and Alex Jones has made a lot of big statements about things that have been recovered and are going to be made public soon. But there were some pretty big statements floating around Twitter this morning about, 14 terabytes of the most horrific footage and stuff that you can consider that is now in the right hands, and it's all going to be made public and things like that. I don't know how much of that is tied in, but you go right ahead with what you think comes next.
Look, at the end of the day, for me, if they don't release a binder, and on the cover of that binder it's titled Operation Leap Year, I don't give a rip. I don't care. That's what the FBI did back in 2006. As soon as they got tipped off by the chief of police or the sheriff, I forgot his name, down in Palm Beach County, how that thing all got started down in Florida when that Kirshner guy wouldn't prosecute or, form that grand jury and just got him on a prostitution charge. And then the sheriff got pissed off and went to the feds.
Mm-hmm.
That's when that started. They gave it a name, Operation Leap Year. Release all of it. All of it. Everything they found. They went back during that investigation, the feds, into the early 2000s, into the 90s. Where do you think they got the stuff for the Maxwell trial? It's from the feds. So I don't want to see anything but what the feds found during that Operation Leap Year investigation. I want to see that file. I want to see what they found. That way we all know what the feds found and when they found it. That's it. So it doesn't say Operation Leap Year. I don't care. I don't care about flight logs. I don't care about additional victims' names. Conlin's right. She said, just because you're on the plane doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. A lot of people flew on that plane. A lot of people used that plane and flew on it without Epstein. That he let people use that plane. So you can't really say just because they're on the plane that they're guilty. Lauren Conlin's absolutely right by saying that. Let me know what the feds found in 2006 through 2008, however long Operation Leap Year. I want to see what they found in that report. If you're serious, release it. But you know why you're not going to release it? Because it's going to make the feds look bad. That's what's going to happen.
That's what it comes down to. I was intrigued by the SDNY aspect of it all, because there are a couple of other dead-end stories that really lived and died in New York, the Wiener laptop, things like that. And of course, that is where Epstein was living at the time of his arrest and then death. And otherwise, where would all the leap year files, that would be in D.C., no? Where would that be kept?
I have no idea. Wherever the feds keep things, who the hell knows?
Right.
Maybe they destroyed it already. Maybe they deleted it. But we know it had a name. It was called Operation Leap Year. And why I don't see that in the media when people are talking about this blows my mind. You know the name. That's what they named their freaking investigation. Why do you think we know there was we know that about his plane? Why do we know about the island? Why do we know about New Mexico? It was all from leap year. They found many more victims. What else did you find? Release that. That should be like in the alternative news industry, every website, every podcast that talks about Epstein. That's what they should be screaming. Give us the Operation Leap Year file. But nobody talks about it. I never hear the name. So it drives me freaking bonkers. That's why I don't really give a rip anymore.
Yeah. I remember when we were actually talking about this during that very short Ghislaine Maxwell trial, about how the entire nature of the trial was so intriguing, because both the prosecution and the defense knew that this was the meme, the Spider-Man meme, where you had the two Spider-Mans pointing at each other. And you had we were wondering how they were going to wrap up that trial to reach some sort of a acceptable end without really pulling on that on the sweater thread a little bit too much, because the United States government and all of its international affiliates and the intelligence and otherwise, that's at the back end of this. So it's just it was a game of chicken, a very, very interesting game of chicken. And you put it in very simple and very powerful terms there. If we're not getting anything that has leap year on the other side of it, then we're going to be
and
giving.
You're not for real, man. I mean, then you're just messing around. If you're going to say you're going to release everything, then let's release what the FBI found during that investigation. Operation Leap Year was the name. Release it. But they're not going to do it because it's going to make the FBI look terrible.
It would also be trial ready, correct? It would be trial ready at this point. I mean, it was I know Leap Year was scuttled at in very advanced stages of it, but it may all still be actionable. I mean, I know that Epstein's dead, but still.
It's like, I go back to the Maxwell trial. In the preparation for that, the prosecutors were receiving information from the feds. What information were they receiving? What information? It was leap year. It had to be leap year. Because I'm sure they knew about Maxwell back then. So I'm sure they went back and they found her, whatever else she was doing. It drives me crazy, man. You know what?
Yeah.
It's the other thing that's pissing me off is that, ever since Trump arrived on the scene, people think that, remember, Trump is one man. That's it. Hey, I rooted for Kash Patel to get the FBI gig. I was rooting for him from Jump Street. But one man is not going to fix government. I mean, it's not going to fix this entire problem, especially when it comes to pedophilia in government and child sex trafficking. It is so much bigger. It's so much bigger than him. It's so interwound in our government that nobody can put an end to it. That's where I'm at right now. And people, just because Trump's in charge, don't forget, Republicans are still pedophiles too. Who the hell do you trust in government? It's not just Democrats. It's both sides. You got that Republican senator just got sentenced. He was, in North Dakota because he was going to prom to rape boys.
Well, there was somebody else. There was some sort of a Republican faith leader from Texas who was just arrested too.
Yeah, it goes across party lines, so you don't know who to trust. This is what happens when your federal government runs on a blackmail system. It's so ingenious that it can't be stopped. How do you stop it? You think, okay, so let's say they release the Epstein files. All right, we find out some new names. Is there going to be trials? Who's going to be released? Okay, maybe you get a few more businessmen. You're going to get anybody in government? No. You're going to get any senators? No. You're going to get any congressmen? No. So what's the point?
So then, what do you do? I know you're getting very upset right now. It's one thing to I know. And so then, okay. So then, if you talk about proactive, it's one thing for how can you put a proactive and positive spin on this? Where do you go from here? I know that it's hard.
I got a good answer. Okay. I got a good answer for that question.
Yeah.
This is because I learned this in my 20s when I messed around with congressmen raping kids and tried to make a dent in that. Because in your 20s, you're idealistic and you think you can change the world, and then you get slapped in the face with this thing called life. and you learn real quick. So I learned real quick that you can't stop what was going on a grander scale. So I took the course of, let me work on cases that I can affect some kind of change where I'm not going to have such huge interference. So I worked on cases that nobody ever heard about all across the country. I told the Arkansas story, so you guys know that. And I worked cases in Florida, Texas, Arizona, California, cases nobody's ever heard of. That's what I decided to do with my life. And then, of course, Ramsey being the big one. Because I still, to this day, believe that the people in Boulder are touchable. They've been able to cover it up so far, but we're working on that. Now, it took my whole life to do, but they're still touchable. The people in the federal government, untouchable. You can't touch them. No matter what you find. I mean, one congressman, I had 4 witnesses on that freaking guy. 4. Nothing happened other than people calling me up. That's a whole. I won't even get into that.
You're talking about the House of Representatives.
Yeah, I'm talking about. Let's say Barney Frank. I had 4 people to describe his basement in detail. All 4. I went to the Boston. What paper was that? The Boston Globe. And I spoke to a reporter. No, the reporter. Somebody took my information. The reporter called me back. I gave him all the information. Let's say, I forget his name. He said it's Mike Rogers or something like that. And then I hung up the phone and I forgot to tell him something. I went to call him back. And I was like, let me speak to Mike Rogers. And they're like, Mike who? There's no Mike Rogers here. Well, I was like, I just hung up the phone. I was like, what the hell?
Oh, boy.
And then I started getting threatening phone calls after that. I'm like, well, that's how. And that's why I said, enough of this. Let me just focus on things I can focus on and try to affect change that way. Have I had huge success over the years? No. Have I had some? Yes. So I take that as a win. And that's what people can do when you hear somebody like me saying there's no hope to change the federal government, because there is none. That this machine will keep going. But you can affect change on your own. You get involved in cases. Just because you're not a cop doesn't mean you can't question witnesses. You can just run your own investigation. Me and my brother have been running our own investigation in Boulder for going on 29 years. The stuff we found out, we're still digging up information. The author's going to kill us because we got about 300 more pages to add just in the last 3 weeks. It's just nonstop in that freaking town. You think Utah's freaking whack. I mean, that's a whack state. This is what happens when you have, some, apostate religion whack jobs who believe they become God of their own planet. Anyway, you got to fire it up, Frank.
I was going to say, I'm just staying out of your way. I'm staying out of your way tonight, Frank. It's been a long time since I heard you this fired up.
Oh, just because, Conlin got freaking fired up, and then I was like, then I got fired up by watching her, and I was like, let me just freaking call Frank.
Oh, there was more. I mean, there was more to tonight, even little tiny things. Like when she was talking about, repressed memories versus false memories, even that brought me back to Ghislaine Maxwell when they brought in that Dr. Elizabeth Loftus. You remember the psychologist, the spook they brought in for false memories?
Oh yeah, they went back to the freaking, they took the time machine back for her. The False Memory Foundation. Yeah, when Conlin was talking, when you guys were talking about that, you guys are way too young, man, for this. Back so what was that guy's name? Underwager? Is that his name? That freaking spook who created that freaking thing? Anyway, you had Paul and Shirley Eberly. Used to be, they were these doctors. They would always be on these talk shows. Pretty much they were the talking heads to promote it and say, the False Memory Syndrome Foundation's a great thing. They wound up being child pornographers. Those two. the talking heads that were always on TV talking about that and hyping it up and saying, oh, yeah, it's a great thing, it's real. They wound up being child pornographers, the Everlys. They ran a child pornography mag called Finger. That was another thing that pissed me off when you guys started talking about that.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of PTSD going on tonight, Frank.
Oh, I know. And over the years, just from what you've led on, I can imagine that there's, any little thing.
I am burnt out, man. I am burnt. I am the definition of a burnout. That's pretty much what I am.
But this is one of those things where I don't ever see you stopping. Time claims all people. We're all going to die one day. But I think that wherever your story ends, you'll be doing this right till the end. I don't see you ever stopping. How can you?
I mean, you can do this stuff forever. It's like, you take a broom and you try to sweep back the ocean, or try to sweep the sunlight off a roof on a sunny day. It just never ends. Like, yeah, my life thing is Boulder. Okay, yeah, we're working on a book. Hopefully it'll be finished this year, and then hopefully it comes out in time for the 30th anniversary, when all the editing's done. Then if it sells, hopefully it sells well, and then we go on to the documentary phase, and then we're done. Because we can keep looking into Boulder forever, and that's just like in the 80s and 90s. That's how freaking crazy that town was. But I mean, are we ever going to stop? No, because it's in us to do this type of stuff, me and my brother. Whether it's, I could retire somewhere to a small town, and just I don't know what I'll do with my life. But I'll work for a small newspaper, rooting out small time corruption at City Hall or something.
That sounds cozy. I got to be honest.
Yeah, they're cozy. Just sit at a little cubicle and get sources in the town. Talk to Ed, the bag boy at the shop, right, and see what he knows. I'll never stop.
You're gonna have to pick up some other little jobs, like you're gonna have to report on the local little league too. You're gonna have to do local little league championships and all that stuff. But then again, I think that's so damn cozy. I think that's the best part about like Stranger Things. You ever watch Stranger Things, Frank?
Just the first season, Frank. Just the first season.
I mean, setting is everything. And I love settings where you're in a smaller town. It could be suburb. It could be a little bit more rural. You have a solitary radio station that keeps everybody together. You have the police. You have little radio communications. You have the local paper that has some pretty good circulation, because what else are you going to do? I think that stuff is just really, really salt of the earth and awesome. And not only is it romantic, but it's romantic in a narrative weaving sense too. Like there's so many rich stories that could be told with that backdrop, mystery stories and things like that. I think that those settings are just as good as, big city film noir detective stories.
Oh yeah. I mean, you give me small town Americana at this point, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Well, who knows? Small town life.
Maybe we'll be next door neighbors one day.
Hey, speaking of in the future someday, as I think I may have mentioned to you, I'm moving from the great state of New Jersey, and I'm moving to Ohio, Cincinnati. So you're gonna have to get me in there in the studio at some point between now and I don't know, June 1st.
Well,
hopefully get my brother down, and then we'll talk Ramsey. We'll talk Ramsey live for an hour or two.
I've been telling you both. Well, let's get Jim down from Maine, and let's do a show. You're gonna have to, especially if you're flying the coop, man. That's hey, listen, you gotta go wherever the hell it's time to go. But before you do leave, we definitely have to have one show in the studio.
Definitely one show. If my brother gets enough of a heads up, I'm sure he'll be able to swing and come down, and we'll pork Ramsey or whatever else you want to talk about. We can do that for an hour or two. So yeah, that would be fun before I, get the hell out of here.
That's it. Before you find your fortress of solitude somewhere in the Midwest.
Well, thinking Cincinnati. I never freaking thought I'd be living there, but that's where I'm going to be.
Oh, it's good. Oh, you're going to Cincinnati, huh?
Yeah, WKRP, baby.
Well, you gotta whatchamacallit, you gotta get out to Great American Ballpark and watch some matchups there with the I would go to, if I lived near Reds, the Cincinnati Reds, I'd go there all the time. I really would.
I've never been, to Cincinnati. I never had a problem, I don't hate the Cincinnati Reds. Yeah, I'll probably go to the ballpark. I think I'm going to be, I think I looked at Google one time. I think I'm going to be 15 minutes away. So that's not bad at all.
Not bad at all. Yankees come to town. You get to go there, see the home brews. Oh wait, are you a Mets fan? You're a Mets fan.
I am now the best team in New York. The New York Mets. That's my team, Frank.
Right.
Juan Soto says hi, by the way.
Juan Soto says hi. Yeah. We'll see.
Loves it in Queens.
I'm happy. Well, listen, the one thing he'd say is that he's going to hit more home runs than he drops fly balls. So that'll be good. That'll be good. And I'm not gonna front by saying it was not easy to see him leave, but I was totally fine with it. I didn't know what the hell was happening, where he was gonna go. But once I started seeing $750 million, yeah, it's not my money, but I would much rather him go somewhere else as long as you spend that money on 7 other players, because that was more worth it to me.
The Yanks were looking good until you got hit with the injury bug. Man.
Oh fuck! Listen, who the hell knows? Brutal. Who knows? Yankees and Steinbrenners, they're so not of the winning mentality. They thought that allowing the Yankees to, they got rid. Did you hear they get rid of the facial hair? The facial hair tradition. Now Yankees can have beards. So they go. So they have these lackluster off seasons where they don't sign anybody. Oh, we got a couple of signings this year, but they actually and people took it. Said fine. We don't have a World Series team, but at least our men could wear beards again. And I can't believe how many male Yankee fans were just like, finally. Like, what do you mean finally? Like, that was the one thing that you were missing, your boys to have beards. Like come on, give a shit. Keep some traditions.
Yeah, exactly. It's tradition. I think the last team to do it now is Lou Lamoriello with the Islanders. You still have to be clean shaven, and that became big news when they signed a player in the offseason, Anthony Duclair. The guy had these long dreads, and Lou said, "You got to cut off the dreads, man." And everybody freaked out. How can you do that? The guy wears dreads. That's what he wants. You got to let him do it. He's a freaking hockey player, man. He chose to sign here. He knew what Lou's rules were. Cut off your freaking dreads. The saddest thing is that's the toughest part of his hockey game was his hair. Because the guy's half a freaking sissy. But anyway.
I think it really comes down to this whole obsession with personal identity and what you project to the world being the most important thing. Like what makes you in a performative kind of way. And it's the sickest. It's so sick. It's really permeated everything. And that's why I think it's just it's sad when I sat around and I saw people like, yes, finally. Like, finally what? I couldn't believe it. Like, exactly. I expected it from women to be like, oh, I like my men with 5 o'clock shadow. That's so nice. But to see all the guys that were just like, oh, yeah, they're good, great. Now we can. What? It's like nobody. It wasn't like the Steinbrenners told Yankee fans, you can't enter the building unless you have clean shaven cheeks. We're talking about 9 guys on the field, and everybody's like, finally, yes, my men are bearded. I'm like, it's like, what the hell's wrong with you all? It was so fucking weird that we ate it up like that. It's like, I'd rather them go spend money and have a great team on the field and have nobody have beards than give us this as a consolation prize. So stupid.
Hey, I'm with you, but this is what happens. this country, we have been sissified as a nation, and they went through our sports and they sissified everything. And this is, and so when you see people just accept stuff like that, this is like the end result of it. I swear, if I had a button and I could just, somebody would just say, press that button, you go back to 1955, I would freaking do it.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Everything back to the normalcy.
Well, you know something, dude? I mean, I understand why you would want to go back to 1955, and I understand that certain parts in the timeline would be ideal if you actually had a plan to stop certain cultural revolutions or to, prevent the formation of one national security aspect or another that would get out of control and take over the whole country. But when it comes to just where the culture really just flaked away, or when it was just strong, it was so recent. The last 15, 20, 25 years, I would say right up to, around 9/11, a couple of years afterwards. If you look, like, for example, right now, I'm watching, and I don't watch the NBA, but when I did watch the NBA was I was in maybe, it was 1990 through 1998 or something like that. And the NBA was Michael Jordan to me, because there was something, as far as intensity and the fire, it was incredible to watch. It was incredible to watch somebody will themselves to do things and to make people around them better and to be so badass about it. And then you think about, and then I see what things are now, and I'm really only being able to compare that now through reels that I see on Instagram, because I'm not watching it on television. And LeBron, how the big name in the NBA for the last 15 years or so has been LeBron James, and he's such a wimpy shit, and he's such a bitch.
Please.
And it's just, we're talking about a 25-year, like the spigot was absolutely turned off, and so much life was drained out of the culture. No matter where it was, everything was commandeered by some sort of a political special interest, and all organic interaction was, I don't know, it's just like it's a drained reservoir at this point.
Oh, I could go on and on, Frank, but you do realize it's like 9:05, right?
Yeah, well, I started at 7:30. Who the fuck cares?
Oh, okay.
I mean,
usually you're trying to kick me off at 9:05.
Tonight's one of those nights where it's actually appropriate to bleed over. But whatever. That just, okay. Last thing I'll say.
From a sports standpoint, Frank, I mean, the NBA is, when you talk about that era with Jordan, I go back even further with Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. The physical intensity of the NBA was amazing. It was a different sport. What you see now in the NBA of Bird and Johnson and the early Jordan, it's a totally different game. And it's the same for baseball in a way, same for football, same for hockey. Even though hockey you can still play a little rough and tumble, but nothing the way it used to be. They've gotten rid of the physical aspect of all these sports, and to me, this is by design. It's a sissifying process. I'll keep using that word, where you can't, it's like LeBron gets, like you brought up LeBron. LeBron gets touched, he falls down screaming like a little bitch. Well, he's done that for the last, he's done that his whole career pretty much. But people compare him to Jordan. I'm like, get the hell out of here.
No, and I have, seriously, like I said, it's not. I wouldn't even call it a favorite sport of mine. I don't watch it, and when I did, it was really because of that whole generation. The last years of Larry Bird being around. I remember the last years of Larry Bird and the last years of Magic Johnson. I wasn't there. I wasn't really conscious during the heyday in the 80s, but you know what I just watched recently with Lauren, and I told her, I said, listen, we're gonna have to watch this again soon. It came out a few years ago. It's called Last Dance. Did you ever see The Last Dance?
The Last Dance. Why does that ring a bell?
It's a series on It's a series on Jordan and the Bulls, and coming back.
I see parts of it. I did not see the whole thing, but I did see parts of it.
Yeah, Jordan, Pippen, their last, going back with Phil Jackson, and they're going for that last championship because they know that the team is going to be broken up. But it's everything up until that point, and it is just filled with badassery. And it's something that I really appreciated because I was watching a lot of those games, not when Jordan first came up. I was just born in 85. But in those gigantic years where it was nothing but Chicago Bulls, and how you became like a Michael Jackson level superstar. And there's such great cultural insights into The Last Dance. And as far as determination, leadership, badassery that does not exist anymore, it's really refreshing to watch. It's awesome. I think you'd really enjoy it.
You know what? I will go back and I will watch the entirety of The Last Dance. But that's the thing. When people talk sports, everybody talks about, oh yeah, back in this day and age, it was better. It's like because they ruined it. They ruined they ruined everything. Now you're paying collegiate athletes money. Now you destroyed college basketball. That's over. Because now you're going to have to institute some kind of salary cap. So, everybody watches March Madness, or at least a couple of games of March Madness every year. I used to be a huge college basketball guy back in my gambling days. Can't even watch that anymore because these guys are assassins. You're paying these guys huge money. They play for 1 year in college and then go for the bigger money in the pros. So they destroyed college basketball. They destroyed college football. To me, most of the sports have been destroyed. Baseball went after the almighty dollar and they killed it with steroids. With Sosa and McGuire and everybody else that started taking it, and they ruined all the beauty of baseball was its records, and now it's tarnished forever. So if you can't trust if you can't have that romanticism about baseball and the records, then where's the sport? I cannot believe it. And baseball was my first true love. Hockey wound up replacing it as I got older. But baseball I played for many years. Baseball I coached for many years. And just to see the way it is now, I don't have the same love for the game anymore. I don't watch that many games anymore because it's a different game. Everything's about home runs. What about manufacturing runs?
Yeah.
What about hitting and running? Just the little intricacies of baseball that aren't there anymore. You just don't see it. And now, pitchers can't pitch more than 5 innings because bunch of sissies.
Listen, I'm with you. I'm telling you, it hurts. Yeah, it hurts. I hear the new term is quality start. A quality start is like four and 2/3 innings or something like that. It was a quality start. Get the fuck out. And I remember going back to like every once in a while I'll see some some clip from 2009, which is close to 20 years ago now. I'll see a clip from 2009 with the Yankees with Andy Pettit's last hurrah in the World Series. And I'm seeing him from, just regular starts in 2009 where he's pitching into the 7th and the 8th. I'm like, wow, a starting pitcher pitching into the 8th inning. What the hell is that even? It's what is that? It's just crazy that we'll never, ever see a 300 game winner again. 200 games is going to be a big milestone soon because they're not even getting a win as a pitcher is not even valuable anymore. They just want you to get to the 4th so that the bullpen can take over, and then we'll blow out their arms, and that's it.
You know where a pitcher used to pitch who averaged 4 innings a game? It was called the minor leagues.
That's it.
You get guys now, that's what they average with an ERA of 4. Back in 1992, you wouldn't even been in the pros.
Well,
you were a bum, man. Ugh.
Well, Frank, I had to pull you into this direction because I felt like it was a little happier place to lead off. it was a happier place to leave off than where we were. So I'm happy that you just you let go a little bit and you just entertain some other cultural issues that we have going on right now, because it is part of the big picture. It doesn't matter how you know, some people have coped with the loss of, the performing arts and athletics in our culture by just saying, creating like sports ball memes and, this is all bullshit. It's all distraction. No, it's not a distraction for somebody to sit down for 2.5 hours on a Sunday afternoon, have a drink and watch a baseball game. You don't divorce yourself from all the real issues in the world because you know what the Yankees did the night before. It's a cope because we've lost really good, serviceable parts of our culture. I mean, American history, so much of it is lived through these traditions that we've had and these sports and these other things that drew culture together and created heroes of the past. So it's something it's very relevant, and I'm glad that you entertained me for a little bit.
Well, I'm glad you brought me back to a happier time when my pastimes were destroyed with sports. Where we should have ended this phone call was retiring to small Americana, small town USA. That's where we should have ended it. But on a real happy note.
Yeah. Well, if we're going, but here, okay. So if I'm going to tie it all together, then if we're going to think about small time Americana, and we're going to think about getting back to the simple things, then eventually we're going to get back to the independent leagues. We're going to get back to the town leagues. We're going to get back to people going out on a Friday night to the town square under the lights, and there's a couple of local softball games or a men's league that's playing, and those are going to be the leagues that matter more than the gigantic billion-dollar monopolies that Major League Baseball is. They have the Hall of Fame and all that, but Major League Baseball isn't the sport, and the sport is really what's in the athletics and the camaraderie from something like that is what is most important. So I hope, and I guess that's another thing I would tell you to watch. I think you would love this one. I've suggested it on the show before, Frank. You've got to go on Netflix and watch this documentary called The Battered Bastards of Baseball. And it's about
never seen it.
Oh, it's incredible. It's about Bing Russell, Kurt Russell's father, moving out of Hollywood and buying the Portland Mavericks and creating this incredible team culture with castaways from all around of the baseball world that nobody wanted anymore, and created a winning team that was destroying all of these Major League Baseball minor league teams. He was unaffiliated. This is at a time when all of the independent leagues around the country were being absorbed by these major league teams and just turned into a minor league feeder system, which was really destroying what was a small town piece of culture where people can actually get to know the team a little bit more, because once somebody started doing better, they were shipped up to the next level and then into the majors. Well, Bing Russell, he really put it's a great American entrepreneurship story, and it's a great story about a small little interest beating a giant monopoly. I think you would love Last Dance, and you got to watch The Battered Bastards of Baseball.
Battered Bastards of Baseball. I will watch that as well. How the hell we went from Epstein, pedophilia, to Bing Russell and his baseball team? That is one for the record books, man.
You know what?
Usually when I call you, we're usually a little all over the map. This one is for the record book. I don't know how the hell we got here, but we're here.
Thank God for it, because now I feel better hanging up. All right.
Yeah. All right. Good job reeling me back, man. Good job.
Well, we reeled each other back. Thanks again for the call, Frank.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Frank. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care. There you have it. Those are good ones. Okay. Tomorrow we've got Top Lobster and Dave, Nephilim Death Squad. I also just want to give a shout out to everybody, the two people who are watching this show on Telegram. Finally, a successful test. I tuned in just a couple of seconds ago just to see if it worked, and it did in fact work. So now I'm streaming this show on YouTube and Rumble and Quite Frankly.tv, pill.net, and Telegram and DLive and Twitter, and I don't know what the hell else that we have going on at this point. But that was nice. Little tiny things. And nobody's complaining, so. All right. Have a good evening. Thank you, Lauren Conlin. Thank you, Frank Zell, who was a 40-minute guest. He was on for longer than Lauren Conlin was. Hold on. We have a couple of super chats here from Pilled. Let me thank you. Cave Toad says, God bless you, Frank. Keep up the good work. Sean Joe, ATD. Homegoy says, until or unless Epstein is resolved, it is fair to assume USA is ran by Israeli corrupted people. Among other things, no doubt. And significant, there's a significant Israeli interest in that operation, no doubt, but among other things. Safety net, positive, high vibe, energy, Frank and Frankly family. One love, Lynn. Homegoy says, are there any more small town newspapers anymore? Yes, there are. They may be shrinking. The real question is, how many small town independent papers are there? Our town paper that has been around for decades just shuttered its doors. And whether or not I ever read what was in there, and whenever I did read things that were in there, I rolled my eyes hard, because obviously they had a worldview that they were making very, very local. They weren't Soros owned, or else they'd still be in business. You know, circulation problems. They just shuttered about less than a year ago. But I'm sure that somebody's out there. If you work for a small independent local paper, get in touch with me. I want to know all about it. I want to know how business is. I just want to know about, the history of the paper and all that stuff. Let's see. The Sentinel says top of Citizen Free Press has a link about the Passion of the Christ sequel. I read it. I'll bring it up tomorrow night, but the essence of the whole thing is that Mel Gibson is going to be shooting. They are starting to shoot The Resurrection in Rome this summer. So it begins this summer, which that's great news, because I kept hearing that filming was going to start in 2026. So the fact that they're already on location in summer of 2025, maybe we'll get it in 26. Although I doubt it. How can you not release this in Easter time? I don't know. What does it take? 3 months to wrap a movie? That's possible. I hope so. I just want quick. Can't take it anymore. Cave Toad just gifted a 3-month bronze tier subscription, and Bill Cooper took it. Thank you, Cave Toad, again. You're a mensch. And Bill, enjoy 3 months of being a sponsor, quite frankly. That's all I got for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Kobe Wan on Rumble. Thank you, sir. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Nighty night.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Quite Frankly is filmed before a live studio audience, and now our super chatters, starting with the Gold Pillars and Jay Brits and a whole bunch of wonderful friends over on Rumble. Kobe Wan, Ghost Smith, Grandma Grateful, Ghost Smith again. You guys have been wonderful to me, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you to the guests, and thank you to the audience alike. All of the after hours on QuiteFrankly.tv are about to start right now, so don't go anywhere, because it is as good as it ever has been. Thank you again to John Carroll for the curating and the engineering tonight. Good night.